Bill's never been up here for one of these. I see him every morning, so I said, you know what?
Have some fun today.
Hey, morning, everybody. Thanks for coming in a bit early ahead of our 10:30 practice. So we just thought hit game number 40 tonight this season. Perfect time for a mid-season check-in with Steve. So the way this is going to work, I hand it over to Steve. He'll just kind of give an overview of where he sees things, and then we'll open it up to questions. Just raise your hand so that you're not talking over each other, and we'll just pick you off one by one and go from there. So without further ado, I'll hand it over to Steve.
Thanks, Ian. Yeah, a little bit before the midway point. Leaving tomorrow for amateur meetings and looking forward to that, knowing how hard those guys work and getting to spend some time with them. But we're at the midway 39 game mark here, and it's good for me to give you a brief overview on where I feel the team is at. The one thing I think there's a couple things I think that are different this year. One is expectations. I think the expectations, and that comes with how well the team played last year, in particular post-trade deadline. And that's well earned. And we're not, teams aren't taking us lightly now, and we have higher expectations for ourselves. What are the expectations for our group? We talked about taking a step last year. We want to take another step this year. And we're building towards wanting to be a contending team. And this is certainly part of the process. But expectations are different coming into this year. We're 2 points better than we were at this point last year. So, do we want to be better than that? Of course, we're always striving to be better. But I watch our team and I look at it objectively. There's a lot to like about the way we've been playing. We use the underlying numbers to confirm what we're seeing with our eye. We've improved in some of the most important categories when you look at the numbers. And, and perspective is this. I think we went through a 2-7-1 stretch where when I was watching our team play, it felt pretty good about the way we were playing, and we weren't getting the results. So keeping with the theme of being process-driven, I think those are some of the things that I look at to make sure that we understand exactly what we are as a team. The other thing I think is unique, and we've talked a lot about it, is the parity in the league, and in particular in the Eastern Conference and in the Atlantic Division. So it puts a greater emphasis on each and every game. I think the margins are tighter than they've ever been, and we got to be up for the challenge. We got to be up for the challenge to be able to get through some of those areas and improve on our game. So I know you guys are going to have more specific questions, so I can open it up to you guys now.
Just a couple things for me. Why do you think this team has struggled so mightily with consistency?
I don't know if it's been consistency in play or effort. We live in reality. There's a couple areas of our game that aren't up to expectation, and we can talk about goaltending. And if the goaltenders were in here right now, they would, be honest that they haven't played to expectations. Now, I think the optimism comes from over the last month or so. They have played to expectations, so it wasn't the best of starts for them, but it had stabilized, and I would feel comfortable saying that it's going to continue to not only stabilize but move in the right direction.
But to stabilize, you have to have both your goalies. Do you have any idea when you're going to have Linus Olmark back?
Well, Linus knows he's got our full support, and we're going to respect not having a comment on that situation. We have full belief in Linus. And along with Levy, who's a good young goaltender who continues to develop, along with our depth with Mad Sogard and Hunter Shepard. So, Linus, we know what Linus is as a goaltender. He knows what he is as a goaltender. But at this point in time, we just have our full support and respect his privacy as until we have him back.
Is there any timeline, though, on that? Do you have any idea of how long that could be?
No. Yeah, we wouldn't, I just leave it at, we'll give him the time afforded to make sure that things are in order.
And even with that, do you expect to be in the market to add a goaltender to your depth at this point, or are you just going to run?
Like I said, I think that, with the depth that we do have, relatively unproven. Levy's had some time, but Mads is continuing to develop and in the right spot right now where he's got the net in Belleville and getting that time. But he's always been a top prospect goaltender, turning into a top pro prospect on the cusp of getting an opportunity.
There's been a lot of talk about what assets you might have if it comes to a point where this team might have to make a trade. If a trade comes your way, how likely are you to consider parting with some of your top prospects, like a Carter Yakubchuk or a Logan Hensler in a trade?
Oh, I wouldn't go so far to that. We're looking at trades. I think you ask me often, are you active? I think we're always active, and I think it goes for most general managers. We speak often on ways to continue to improve our team, but as far as the assets that we have at the right time, if it's the right player, that's just kind of too hard to really put a finger on what might go out for what's out there.
I know you get asked this a lot, but have you been given any indication as to whether or not you will get your first round pick back?
No indication.
Just want to go back to the goaltending. Are you confident then in the situation that you've got right now with Levy and Hunter and then Mads? Is that what you're good with right now?
Yes, and we continue to evaluate, and they're all good goaltenders that, again, with Shep and Sogi haven't had the opportunity yet, but they're quality goaltenders. And Levy, like I said, it continues to build, and young goaltenders. It's amazing, the goaltending position. You can talk to any team in the league, and it's under a microscope. And you can have players that go through stretches that don't have a good month or a good 10 games or whatever it might be. But obviously the emphasis on goaltending. But we have full faith in the goaltending, and we have full faith in Linus once he gets back, Levy, and then Mads and Shep.
Just to follow up also on something you were saying earlier, the expectations of this group being different and the fact that you're 2 points ahead of where you were last year. When you look at the standings, though, and I know you mentioned the parity, is this where you thought you'd be in the standings? Because that's kind of what matters at the end of the day in terms of making the playoffs.
Absolutely. No, I mean, could we be 5 points better, watching our team play? Over 82 games, you hope that it levels out. If we play to that level, over 82, you hope that would, we'd get back to the level that we were last year from a point total perspective. But we can't get wrapped up in looking at the standings. We have to stay focused on what we do on the day-to-day, which is, we've talked about being process-driven. And the expectation is we continue to take a step forward. And it's not, we have enough of a sample size as 39 games that we have taken a step forward in some of the most important categories. But certainly we hope it reflects in wins. We're going to get judged on wins and losses and where we end up in the standings. But the margins are so fine that we can't, you want to stay on top of these areas to continue to improve. But we're not where we want to be for sure from a point total perspective, but I don't think our game's far off.
How does maybe wanting to take a step forward this year? What if you don't? How does that change the calculus of how you see this team moving forward? Especially as you mentioned before, this is kind of your contention window the next couple of years.
Well, I'll start with the contention window of the next couple of years. We'll contend when we're ready to contend, and I think that we're continuing to build towards that. I think that putting a timeline on when our contending window is, I think we have a good young team that continues to develop. And sorry for the first part of your question?
I guess just what's the calculus for you?
Okay. Yeah, well, I mean, continue to evaluate and watch as the team moves forward. Now, I felt last year that there was an opportunity under sort of tight cap constraints to try and improve our team, lengthen our lineup, add a couple of players that are in our top six. If we're moving towards that, I'll be looking to do the exact same thing. And we're always looking to try and get better. And last year we had the opportunity to do that. we'll look at it again. I don't think that, to your point, I think what you're getting on is if the team doesn't get to a certain level, which direction we go. I mean, we'll continue to evaluate, but there's enough optimism with this group that I'm hopeful that we're looking at it in a different way.
John?
You talked about the margins being tighter than they've ever been before, which I think everyone in the league is experiencing. Are there areas of your game or maybe things that you can do that you feel you can just build a little bit, tip the scales and get on the right side of those margins? Have you identified areas of your game?
Special teams, I think when you look at 5-on-5 play, it's so tight across the league. Teams are so prepared to play. The parity is incredible. I think mentally we've done a good job. The other thing that's becoming more clear in our league is the swings. Up 2 goals, down 2 goals, you're never really out of it. I think we've done a good job being able to stay level-headed and maintain our play. But certainly the margins in special teams, when I look at the underlying numbers, there's a lot of good in our game. Our defensive game is very strong. Our structure is great. The coaching has been, holding our players accountable to winning hockey, and they've bought into it. So there's been a couple areas for sure that we'd look to improve in.
You're a young team and you're growing. What have you seen from this team in the idea that last year they made the playoffs? How do you think they've handled the idea that, okay, you made it, now we're a playoff team, now we just keep building, and how hard that can be from year to year, the work that needs to go into being right where you got to last year?
I feel that they're game for it. I think that there's a mindset with this group that they want it. I would say, and I think I said to you guys after the 20-game mark, early on, we may have gotten away from that process-driven approach. And I'm not sure if it was the eagerness. They're a very coachable group. They're very motivated. And sometimes when you want it so bad, you're not doing yourself any favors. And I think coming out of the gate, I was a little surprised. I think we didn't really play to our identity is probably the best way to describe it. I feel like we're getting closer to playing to our identity more consistently.
You mentioned special teams. Your team's penalty kill has been a big talking point throughout this season. From where you're standing, what might need to change in order for it to kind of get out of the 31st place that it's in right now? Is it a question of an on-ice adjustment? Is it a question of adding a penalty killer? Is it something that might have to be done with your coaching staff? How do you see it?
All of that's in discussion. I'm in and around the coaches' room. I see how hard they work, and it's not just on one coach. Like, they all work together on all these areas. They've recognized that it's an area that needs to improve. There's no panic in it. We go through a process to try and find ways, whether it's personnel, who's playing where, defense pairings, how we deploy them. All of that comes in. I think from a structure perspective, I think most of the league plays it the same way we do. Now, we just have to execute better. Certainly, we live in reality. Our penalty kill hasn't been good enough, but it's not like there hasn't been adjustments along the way. It's seen a little bit of an improvement in that area, and you don't want to make it a thing as well. I think the players that go out there for the penalty kill take a ton of pride in it, and I'm hoping with some of the adjustments that we've made and some confidence, you get on the other side of it. And momentum's an interesting thing, and it goes for 5-on-5 player, power player, penalty kill, and we're hoping we have some positive nights and we can continue to improve.
Just a couple things. After 20 games, you were here and you said, in the first 20 games you pissed away points. Do you feel like that trend has continued, though, in the last 20 games?
I mean, the 2-7-2 stretch that we played really well, yeah, you'd hope that you get, a few more points, but we can't look back on it. We got to continue to move forward. If we're 5 points better right now, how much better do we feel about it? You'd hope again over 82 that with the consistent effort that our group puts in, improvement in some of those areas that comes back to us. And you got to believe that some of the things that I see as I watch and what we're reading as well as far as tracking our team, that it gets to that level.
How are you finding the trade market right now is because it's kind of a unique year, Stephen, that we're 34 days from the Olympic break, and then you're going to come back and you're going to have like 10 days to the trade deadline. Is anyone seeing that Olympic break as a possible deadline of its own?
I would say, and I'd add, Bruce, that with the standings being so tight, I think that puts, another variable into how the conversations are going to go. Typically when you see a little bit more of a divide, you have teams that are looking to recoup some assets and move on, and it'll be interesting for sure. There's been lots of dialogue, even leading into the holiday freeze. There'd been some dialogue, but I sense that it's a lot of teams are sort of just in the middle right now, trying to continue to evaluate where their group is.
I guess what you're saying is like the sellers are there's just not many sellers.
Yes, I would agree. Yeah.
How would you assess Brady's game since he's been back? I know the points are there. He's the heartbeat. He just doesn't seem to be where his game's normally at.
Well, I don't feel like that's fair to cherry pick on one player or another. Like we all go through. We talked about players go through stretches where they're not on their game. Brady, we know what Brady means to our team, and we know what he's all about and what he brings to our group. So to bring up one player specifically, I don't think that's right. There's plenty of players that if it was 10 games ago, you could have brought them up as well. And we've had players that have now turned the corner that were being, had questions on them. So I don't think it's fair.
I wouldn't put it that way. He missed 20 games, so that's a huge stretch. He's the captain. He's the heartbeat of your team. So the way he plays is how he carries your team. That's why the question becomes more relevant on him.
Yeah, but we have other players on the team that when one of our players isn't maybe at the top of his game, but we could at any point in the season we could come up here after every 5 games and you could come up and talk to me about a certain player that maybe isn't at the top of his game. Brady is what he is for our group, and whether he's getting points or not, he brings it for our group. Now I think that as a group, we've played well enough to continue to win games. And if we can get to some of these areas that we need to improve on, I feel like this group can turn the corner. And let's be honest, like I think I saw a graphic on one of the broadcasts, and they went through after every game. They showed our division. I watched the teams move around, and it was, teams moving up 3 or 4 spots. And you get on the right side of it for a few games, and things change.
How do you feel about your team's defensive depth at this point? We know that earlier in the year you lost Donovan Zabrango on waivers, and that hurt your team a little bit, but also the rotation of getting guys in like Jordan Spence and Jensen's health as well. How would you assess how the defense has been and how your depth stacks up?
Good. Yeah, I mean, losing Sabrango, bringing in Gilbert for depth on the left side. Jordan Donovan continues to develop as a potential call-up for us as well. Carter Yakimchuk, unfortunately, is injured. Nothing too serious, but we probably would have seen him by now. He's continued to impress and round out his game in the American League with Belleville. Yeah, I feel good. I mean, when you have Jake Sanderson and Thomas Chabot, you have the top guys, and you can continue to bring in like the guys who can play alongside them, and then with our bottom pair, I feel good about our depth.
Do you feel that Nick Jensen might have maybe rushed a little bit too early with what he had?
Possibly. Like I think you saw Jensen's game. It was interesting when Jensen's game hit full stride and he was back to being Jens, was probably the timeline that we had originally had thought. But credit to him that he had come back and pushed, and he wanted to be here for his teammates.
Do you think if your goaltending and your penalty kills improve just even a little bit, like that you're still in it with the numbers you have is remarkable. If they improve just a little bit, might it be fairly easy to make the playoffs?
Yes. I mean, I think that's pretty clear. Like, we live in reality. When we look at it, we watch it, we look at the numbers, that's really, and we have faith that both of them can improve.
When you acquired Jordan Spence at the draft, What did you envision his role for this team?
Well, I think a little bit had to do with Nick's injury, but probably the role that he has now. Very versatile, can play up and down your deep pairings. Very good puck mover. Very good going back for pucks and breaking pucks out. So I think exactly what we had seen. Now, I know it didn't sort of meld in perfectly at the beginning because Nick was back and we had the depth, and it's harder on the player, but it's a good problem to have for a team where you know that you have NHL players that can step in.
How do you maybe reflect on this organization's amateur scouting the past 2 years? You have 2 drafts under your belt. Obviously, you see the kind of players developing. Like, how do you reflect on your drafts so far?
Positively. I think when you look at some of the players that, a couple players that we picked in the 4th round that look like they're real players, that's hard to do. So I think that, and there's no science to it. The draft it comes with we do the best that we can to, build a profile on the player, make a decision, and then it's up to us to continue to develop them. That's why Belleville's so important. So the player that we draft is one thing. The scouts have to go and identify them, and then we have a big job to make sure that we put them in the right environment so they can develop.
What are your thoughts about how Belleville's season has been going on? Obviously, there was a big coaching change with David Bell being out and Andrew Campbell being in, and Carter Yakubchuk's development. He's injured now, but how did you assess what's going on in the AHL?
Well, a big part of my job is to make sure that the environment is right. And so Belleville continued to take a step from the beginning year and has taken a big step forward in that regard. That environment has to be right for us to be able to nurture and develop players. And we continue to get better from day one when I got here. First time I met all of you, we were talking about all the different areas that needed to improve within the organization. We can look back and feel good about a lot of that. Now, we talk about the day-to-day, we talk about the points and the standings and where we want to be, but I think when you start to reflect sort of on the longer-term vision, including Belleville, it's taken a step in the right direction. It's critical that we make sure that environment is right, that we can develop our players.
Are you looking to add another coach in Belleville as an assistant to Andrew?
I'm comfortable with where it's at right now, and Matt Turk's on it on the day-to-day. So we feel good about where we're at. We'll continue to evaluate like anywhere, and if they need some more support. Sam Gagne's on staff, and Sam has been a big support, not only on player development, but also with the coaches, and has been on the bench for them down there as well. He's an incredible resource. Played there, knows the players, incredible career, bright young hockey mind.
Does that general comfort extend to your coaching staff at the NHL level as well?
No issues with my coaching staff here. Maybe the hardest, most cohesive group that I've seen. Like, it's impressive. I wish you guys could see it. Like, the amount of work, the passion, the commitment, the dedication, the understanding, the way Travis has included all the coaches, it's as good as it gets from what I've seen, and no issues there.
I know it's probably up to the coaching staff to relay that, but for you at this point in the season, what would management's overarching message be to your players?
Continue to stay with it. Continue to stay with it to be able to take that next step. Like the margins, I think, like everything that we've talked about, we feel like we're close. But in this league, you cannot take that for granted at all. The emphasis on every given night is, it feels like every game. The emphasis on each and every game now this year, I think has never been highlighted with the parity that we have. So, improvement in some of the areas. The margins are very tight, so make sure you're prepared for every game. Condensed schedule. Look after yourselves. I think leading into the Olympic break, I think we've taken a lot of time on rest and recovery as well in a year like this, and those are the margins. Like, if we're looking at every single detail to try and make sure that we're prepared.
How do you feel Fabian Zetterlund has filled the role of adding scoring for this group to this point?
Yeah, the one thing about even when he wasn't scoring, he was bringing, he's got a fallback game, which is always comforting. He's in on the forecheck. He's heavy. He's got great speed. Yeah, he was a little snake bitten for a while there, but seems to have found it. But he continues to create opportunities. He's fit in well up there. The transition for a player, in particular, if you're coming from a system where, in a trade, you're coming from a system to a team that plays similarly, I think the transition may be a little bit more seamless. And maybe it took Fabian a little bit longer, but it certainly feels like he's fit in quite well there.
Just one last thing. Should you need to address your goaltending, have you spoken to the league regarding special circumstances to take Allmark's cap hit off the cap?
I won't comment on it, but we'll always look at every possibility for sure. Yeah. Okay.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys.